Basement Programmers, and welcome to the basementprogrammer.com YouTube channel. This is Tom from basementprogrammer.com. Today's video, we're going to talk about how you can build .NET 7 applications using the Amazon Code Build service. As I mentioned in the intro, we're going to discuss how you can use AWS Code Build to build your .NET 7 applications. At the moment, Code Build supports .NET 6 in its standard build image. This means that if you're building a .NET 6 application, you're good to go. But what happens if you need to build a .NET 7 application? Or any .NET application that's based on a .NET version that's not currently included in the build image? Well, the good news is you can easily customize your code build environment with the exact version of the .NET SDK that you need for your project. So let's dive in. So let's have a quick overview of what Code Build is. Code Build is one of the AWS services in the CI/CD collection of services. Code Build is purpose-built for, you guessed it, building your application and preparing the code base for release. In a lot of cases, customers will integrate Code Build with Code Pipeline to automatically kick off builds when a user checks source code into a repository. Obviously, Code Build integrates easily with Amazon's Code Pipeline service. However, it can be integrated into other build tools as well. Now, the Code Build service is completely managed. This means you have no infrastructure to set up or maintain, and you pay per minute only for the time you're actually using the service to do your builds. This is great because you don't have to have infrastructure that you're paying for while it's sitting around idle. Now, Code Build has a default build environment that hosts the various SDKs that are included by default. If those SDKs don't work for you, you have two options. You can customize the build environment when your build kicks off, or you can create your own build environment from scratch as a container and tell Code Build to use that. Now, which way you want to do is completely up to you. I would suggest it depends on how much customization you need to do. By going down the route of customizing the build environment, rather than supplying your own, we can leverage all of the work that the Code Build service is doing in the form of patching and maintaining the infrastructure, and just apply our changes. If, on the other hand, you're supplying your own build environment by way of a Docker image, then you have total control, but it's up to you to do all of that maintenance. Okay, let's get to the code. All right, so here we are in my development desktop. And I have a very simple application that I'll run up here now. It's an MVC application, and I've created it targeting the .NET 7, which is the current release candidate. Fire it up here, you can see I'm basically just grabbing the .NET version and displaying it on the screen. Okay, and that's enough for my purposes, mainly because what I want to do is be able to target the .NET 7 runtime. All right. Now, I want to use Code Build to build my application, and this will eventually lead to a completely automated CI/CD process. But first step first. At this point, I'm really just focused on creating an automated build for my project. I've already done a few things. I have my source code set up in CodeCommit, the AWS native Git-based source control system. Now, I really like CodeCommit because it means that I have nothing to do from a setup and maintenance perspective. I just use it. Also, I've already checked in my source code into the repository. Never fear, all the code that I have that I'll be using in this video series will make its way to GitHub. Not that I think you'll be interested in my website, but some of the supporting files may be useful. Now, with Code Build, the actual build process is controlled by a file. Now, by default, it's called the buildspec.yml for YAML. So I need to create this file. Now, there are a couple options here. Okay, option one, you can actually type your build spec file into the Code Build console. This is a quick and easy way to get started with Code Build. However, I really don't recommend this because if anything happens to your Code Build project, you're going to have to recreate that build spec file from scratch. Option number 2, you can give the build spec file an arbitrary name, include that file someplace in your source code, and then tell code build what the name of the file is when you create your code build project. This is a bit better than the previous option, but you still have to remember to update the name in code build to reference your code settings. So I really don't like that option either. Third, and what I consider the best option, you call your file buildspec.yaml and include it in the root of your source code. This is the best way forward. As I said, I highly recommend this way because it's the way that code build is designed to be set up and running. All right, so let's go create the build spec file and add it to our project. I'm going to right click here on solution items and do add new item. Select a text file, and I am going to call it buildspec.yaml. So new file, and it is connected in there. And I'm going to populate it with a very basic set of settings for my build specification. So there we go. Now the default or the very basic build spec settings, I'm going to call out the version number. That's just the version of the file. And build spec specifies a number of different phases. Now if I want to have a very basic build set of build settings, obviously the phase that I need to be concerned with is the build phase, and then I'm going to have the commands. And you know, the .NET SDK actually makes it very easy to build your project. We can just go .NET restore, and I'm going to call it the solution name, which you can see here, sample MVC net 7, and then .NET build sample MVC .7. Okay, I'm going to save that. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to check in my changes. So adding file master, I'm going to do commit and push and save. Alright, so that's going to push all my settings up into my AWS account. Now let's jump into AWS. Okay, so I'm already here in the code build console. So if you aren't, from the top search, you can always type code build, and you can get it. And that will bring you to the build projects area, which is where I just was. Now, first thing I want to do is create a build project. Okay. By convention, I usually set the project name to be the name of the solution. Just makes it nice and easy to tie together. Always a good idea to put a description so you understand what's going on. I'm going to skip that for this. Now, as I mentioned, my code is stored in code commit. So we have to tell code build where to find the source code. The default option is code commit. There are a few other options here as well. Okay, I'm going to select that. And if I right click in the repository, it'll give me a list of repositories that it retrieves. So select the repository. Reference type branch. Okay, and I'm going to select the master branch. Now, build environment. You have two options for dealing with the build environment for code build. Okay, the first is the managed environment, the managed image. And this is an image that the code build service provides for you. It's got a whole bunch of different runtimes baked into it, and it's generally ready to go. The other option is you can provide a custom image. Now, the custom image gives you full control because you're just building a Docker image. You can set it up any way you want to. I'm going to stick with a managed image. And wherever possible, I like the idea of staying with this managed image because it then means that the code build service is going to take care of things like patching and keeping that image up to date. Whereas if I do my custom image here, I'm then fully responsible for the entire environment. So if there's any patching that needs to happen, I need to do that. Okay, so I'm going to stick here with the managed image. For the operating system, I'm going to choose Amazon Linux 2. Okay, I'm building a .NET 7 application, so I can build that on Linux. I can target Linux, and later on down the track, I can actually deploy onto Linux. So that's really what I want to be. Okay, for runtimes, I'm going to select the standard option here. For image, I'm going to select the most current version, so version 4.0, and stick with the option to always use the latest image for this runtime. Linux. Okay. Service role, I've got the option of either a new service role or selecting an existing one. I don't have an existing service role, so what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to name it based on my based on the project that I'm building. That way there I can go in and find it and clean up my resources afterwards. Okay, down here we have that we're being asked about the build spec file. Okay, and there's two options that I talked about before. You can either insert the build commands yourself or use the build spec file. Always recommend stick with the build spec file. And here is an optional spot where you can specify the name. So if you did happen to use a different name for your build spec file, you could put it there. Again, highly recommend stick with the default build spec.yml file, which, as you can see, build spec.yml, which is included there in my repository. So I do that. Now, if I was focused on building a full-featured CI/CD pipeline, now I would be concerned with my artifacts. Okay, the things that I'm building as a result of this. I'm not going to be concerned with that at the moment because I'm not building out the full CI/CD pipeline. In this case, and for this video, I'm really only concerned with, can we build the output? And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to go create build prop. Okay, as you can see, Code Build has now created a project for me that has all the bits and pieces that I need to be able to build my project. So we're going to kick it off and see what happens. I do that by clicking the Start Build button there. And after a few seconds, you'll see that this starts to display something. And what I can do is hit this tail logs. That's going to show me the last little bits of the log file. Now you can see here the build process is going, things are running, it's in progress, and the current phase is provisioning. So what that means is Code Build is going and it's grabbing a whole bunch of, it's grabbing an EC2 instance, it's spinning it up, it's getting the build environment ready. Now it's downloading my source code from code commit, and it's running and it does the build. And you can see along here, it's going and running the first command in my build spec file, which is that, .NET restore. Okay, now you can see here the code build failed. Okay, and it's failed because the current .NET SDK does not support targeting .NET 7. Well, this is a problem because my application is built using .NET 7. So how can we fix this? Well, the core problem is that Code Build service currently only maintains the current LTS version of the .NET SDK. And the current LTS version is .NET 6, but we need .NET 7. It's an easy way to fix this. Okay, we're going to close that, minimize this. I want to go back into Visual Studio. As I mentioned, there are multiple phases in the build spec file. So right now we're just using the build phase. And we've got these commands that say .NET Restore and .NET Build. What I need to do is I need to add a new phase to my build spec file. And I'm going to do that here by taking advantage of the install phase. So the install is a phase that runs before your actual build process gets running. Okay, so I can use this to customize the build environment, and that customization can take a number of forms. Anything that you can do in a command line, you can pretty much do here. In this case, what I want to do is I'm going to go and I'm going to retrieve the .NET 7 SDK for Linux. Okay, and I'll do that with a curl command. Go there, and this file, this URL, you can grab from the Microsoft website and find the download for the current SDK. You can see here I'm grabbing the RC2. Okay, and being Linux, it's going to be a tar.gz file. The next thing I need to do is I need to obviously extract that file and put it into the place where Code Build is looking for the SDKs to be found. So I'm going to do a sudo tar to extract it, and I'm going to extract that file. This is the same file that I've just downloaded, and put it into /root/.net. Okay. This is the location for the other SDKs. Okay, it's the same location that the .NET 6 SDK will be in. Now, just to give a little bit of visibility as to what's going on, I'm going to add another command. Now, YAML is always a little bit challenging with making sure everything lines up. I'm going to add a command that says .NET list SDKs. I'm going to do that just before my build command. So I'll actually be able to look in that log and see which SDKs are installed. Now, if I did that in the previous build, we would have just seen one SDK, which was the .NET 6 SDK. And that was the one that's pre-installed by the service team. So here we go. Let's save. And I'm going to go back to Git, and I'm going to say update build spec .NET 7. Commit and push. Alrighty. Now, with a little bit of luck, okay, my push will start, and that should complete fairly quickly. With a little bit of luck, what I can do is come back here to my builds projects. I don't need to make any changes in my actual build project, because all the changes were there in the build spec file. And you can see here my last run that I ran just a couple minutes ago failed. So let's kick off and say start, and I'm going to hit the trail logs again. Once again, we're provisioning, so we're going to grab the EC2 instance and spin up that build environment to use inside of the service. Download the source code. And any minute now, we should start seeing some actual activity here. So current phase install, that's the phase that we actually created previously by adding that install phase option. And let's see, we can see now we did up here, we did the command. It's jumping out of the way. It's being successful too fast. So we ran the command .NET list SDKs, and you can see here that now we have two SDKs installed, the .NET 6 SDK and the .NET 7 SDK. And we have our build commands running successfully. We got zero warnings and 0 errors. Okay, so everything completed successfully. Now, if I was in a real-life production environment, we'd have a few more stages after this, which would take care of actually packaging up that application as a Docker container and deploying it. And I might do that in a future video. But we've achieved our goal for this morning, which is we want to be able to build that application using the .NET 7 SDK, and we can do so. And as you can see, it's actually quite easy. We can do that with just a few extra commands baked into our build spec. So if we had any other things we needed to do, like let's say downloading a specific package or making some environmental changes, we could do that here too in the install. All right, so with that, I'm going to wrap up this video. Alrighty, as promised, here's where you can find the source code. You can find it at github.com/basementprogrammer and look for the code build repo. So thank you for watching this video. The next video in this series will focus on taking code build a little bit further. If you enjoyed this video and found it helpful, please consider subscribing. Also, check me out on the Basement Programmer podcast.